Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahesh, and this is my son, Niam. We're Econya. We're trying to enable the use of reuse of construction materials. I've been a property developer for 25 years and have seen waste firsthand over that period. But I was still extremely shocked to learn that 60% of all UK waste comes from my sector. That's 60%, which equates to 120 million tons. Now, a proportion of that can be reused and salvaged, and it should be. Another shocking statistic is post-COVID, we've seen a 45% increase in costs. Now, that's primarily due to geopolitical and supply chain shocks, but nonetheless, it hits everyone's bottom line. MBA architects undertook an office refurbishment recently where they identified the potential reuse of fire doors. After extensive research and ensuring their compliance with current building regs, they were able to reuse them and save their client £200,000 together with 4 tons of carbon. Now, there is a commercial case for reusing materials. This is a small example, but it can be scaled up. We have therefore created Econya, which is an online marketplace to help connect buyers of such materials with suppliers who have them.
So the first steps are curating a marketplace for both new and reused materials. So why are we also looking at new? Well, currently there's not enough good quality secondhand stock, and there's obviously a lot more building that we need to do in this country, especially with the housing crisis. And so the way we like to think about it is if we can capture the material at source, we can ensure that these new developments are designed with reuse in mind. So if we think back to the NBA example, let's say they needed 100 doors and they could reuse 20. Well, where are they going to source the other 80 from? And that's kind of where we come in. By capturing the data at source around compliance, warranty, and material information, we make it easier to redeploy and resell that material in the future. The goal being that that door could be resold 3 or 4 times on our platform throughout its life, which also brings us repeat business. So the way we like to think about it is almost like a used car, right? So one with a full service history does not only sell for a higher price, it's also much easier to sell because you can put your trust in the product. The business model is really simple to start. We just take a 5% commission on every sale on the platform, and we're looking to expand into financing and advertising products as we grow to scale and we get some volume.
So Econya is really the first piece of the jigsaw for the circular economy as we see it. It's an enabler to help secure and procure materials for secondary use, where they're reused currently from salvage yards or demolition contractors, or sourced virgin but have an end-of-life and circular strategy. But to do this, we do recognize a shift in mindset from a design perspective. We need designers to specify such materials, together with plans that show disassembly of a building and ultimate salvaging those materials for secondary reuse. We see many value-added streams. We've already discussed the cost and saving money, but compliance together with data capture should be a lot easier and help with delivery of the projects. One interesting fact we're seeing is cheaper finance. For buildings which are low in carbon and sustainable, there is cheaper funding on the horizon.
So we currently have an MVP and we're looking for pilot projects. So if you're an asset owner or asset manager or in charge of procuring construction materials, we'd love to talk to you. Even better if you're in the office, retail, or rental housing sector, because we think those are what fit most naturally with what we're trying to do. We believe that in the future, this will be the standard way to procure construction materials, and hopefully together, we can turn London into a real-life Lego set. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That brings us on to questions. And as the audience get their questions in using the QR code on screen, let's start with one about what sets you apart from others trying to do this.
Okay, so I think the main thing that what we're trying to do to start with is combining that new material piece. So my dad's been a developer for 30 years. We've looked at this on projects that we have, and there's currently not enough materials, or it's the wrong type, or whatever. There's a bunch of problems. But if we can combine it with the right new materials as well, and capture that data so we can reuse that in the future, we can actually fulfill the requirements of the project and actually do so in a timely manner.
Okay. A question's come in asking, how do you manage and differentiate between various construction waste streams?
So that's very difficult to do at the moment. Buildings aren't designed currently for disassembly. So normally you put a bulldozer through it and put in a skip. There are certain elements like steel and certain timber which can be reused currently. But this is the problem. We're still building bespoke buildings for one-time use. We have to change that to allow for disassembly in the future. And therefore, the materials we use today should have a secondary life. And that will help separate the waste.
Brilliant. Next question asks, what partnerships do you need to succeed?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things that we struggled to find at the start was a good supply side, right? How do we get these reused materials to start with? And we've actually been talking to a demolition contractor in South London. They specialize in office kind of soft strip, so the kitchenettes, the furniture, the carpet tiles, and they go through millions and millions of tons of waste a year. So just an interesting stat for you, they do 15 million a year in revenue, and they spend 8 million on disposal costs. So any kind of thing that they can do to reduce that 8 million goes straight to their bottom line. So not only can they do something that commercially makes sense, it's also much, much better for the planet.
Okay. How many builders are you targeting? And is this industry such tech savvy to utilise a social platform?
So I think it's not tech savvy, not at my generational level anyway. It's a two-way marketplace. So I think we need suppliers and we're finding the right... So Econya will be a curated marketplace. I will only onboard suppliers which fulfill what I think we should be doing, which are circular and sustainable. And the demand side, we need developers like me, primarily SME at this stage, but then designers, contractors, and the demand side of the equation. And I think together, demand and supply will grow.
Okay. Is your product MEV operating outside the UK?
No.
Short and sweet. Do you have any funding or investment requirements?
Not at the moment, so we're bootstrapping for now, but always interested to hear, particularly around strategic opportunities that may come up.
Can I just add to that?
Please do.
We're not looking for funding as such, but it's more strategic. We need to partner with people like our asset owners, asset users, but in terms of it could be councils, institutions, people who can actually help us strategically to grow this, because individually it's going to be impossible.
Okay. We've had a question in asking, how do you convince companies to sell materials on your platforms? Because they might want to use landfills to avoid the risk of having to stock materials for long periods of time.
Yeah, it's a good question. If I go back to the example that I said about the demolition contractor, the cost of storage is much less than, as you can imagine, £8 million a year. So they're willing to try out. They've invested in like a small warehouse facility. It's about 10,000 square foot to try this out. Landfill taxes keep going up almost every year. So they all notice and they see a need to innovate in that area.
Brilliant. That brings us to time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.